All right, so that was All You Fascist Ballus, one version. Actually, there's several versions of this Woody Guthrie song out there.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're going to be talking about different kinds of politically motivated music, some protest music, some civil rights music, some more like workers focused, um, various
I think you could
different
throw it all under
subjects of
the
focus.
umbrella of protest music, though.
I think generally
I think
speaking,
that's
yeah,
accurate.
you
Yeah.
could probably throw it all under the umbrella of protest music. And I wanted to start with just a super simple Woody Guthrie song that I think everybody should probably just be listening to every morning before really starting their day. I think it's direct, it's simple, it's optimistic, but it also it sort of has a feel of leaning into it a bit. What do you think,
Yeah.
Travis?
I feel like there's an implied sense of there's that optimism, but there's that also the implied, but you're gonna have to roll up your sleeves and work for it. So all you fascists are bound to lose, but that's only if we the people unite and make it happen.
Really, you could probably just pick up about any Woody Guthrie song and probably get about the same feel
A
in
hundred
that
percent.
sense.
They're all a call to arms to one
Yes,
degree or another.
absolutely. Woody Guthrie is definitely an incredible resource for that. If you just want something to make you feel like a motivational song that's not trite, you know, that isn't going to blow smoke up your ass in any way. Basically, choose any Woody Guthrie song, and you're there. You're ready to roll up your sleeves and get dirty.
Pretty much, but I mean, like you gotta just gotta give credit to how OG this was to be just so straight up political, even in the folk music world. But to be just that in your face about it is definitely something for the time.
This is definitely a time where a certain subset of people were very vocal about the idea of that there's no war except for the class war, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
very shamelessly would openly link external military conflicts together with internal economic woes and class divisions, and also speak about things like racial divides that would be
Yeah.
often antagonized for those economic ends, for the goal of that continued inequality.
It's a shame that we lost that focus on the fact that it is a class war. That's what matters. And all the social wedge issues, all of that, and it all goes back to Woody's time and before. Those are all just meant to divide us in other ways to keep us from punching up. If
Right.
we're all divided down here, we're not punching up at who's oppressing us. And that's the oppressor's oldest trick in the playbook, you know?
Yeah, and I do think that that is a very like probably about the only legitimate centrist message that is worth holding on to in a very starkly politically divided country, is that there's a lot of things that I feel like Republicans wouldn't be giving a shit about if their focus was on the class war, and same for a more liberal, maybe not necessarily leftist, but liberal side of the Democratic Party as well. That is, more focused on like almost a corporatization of these movements. If there was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
focus on the fact that these things get corporatized so that they can get neutered by those same powers that be that we should be, coalescing ourselves against, then maybe we would be a bit more resistant to that input in the first place.
Yeah, we do seem susceptible to that little allowing things that start with the best of intention like that to be co-opted by something that's either just latching onto it opportunistically to make a buck or
Mhm.
to do it for a politically driven or way to move the narrative in whatever way they're trying to move it.
I mean, your local gay pride parade brought to you by Chase Bank. I mean, it's, you know, like,
Yeah, that shit.
yeah,
That
like
right there. Yeah.
it's we should have gay pride parades. They're valuable. They're potent. They are a more peaceful representation of what would normally happen when a group of LGBTQ people would get together and
Yeah, they get
form any kind of
stonewalled.
protest. Yeah, exactly. Like it's a useful representation, of a remembrance of that part of that specific kind of struggle. And then but it's so neutered by what this sort of like capitalistic brain worm that burrows its way in.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of one of those things that goes back too, is like those protest songs that do subtly keep that message alive. Like it
Hmm.
might not be pertinent anymore. Like this might not be a struggle of your time, it might be the struggle of your forefathers' time. But we're
Hmm.
still going to keep that alive in our shared culture through music, just as like we've been doing for eons.
Forever, absolutely, yes.
Which, so, like, I mean, I feel like that kind of demonstrates the power of that, though. Like, we have such a huge shared culture, just as this big old collective group of whatever we are. Like, it's,
Hmm.
I don't know, it's like cutting that off for whatever reason, be it racist, xenophobic, whatever, just has always struck me as kind of like cutting off your nose to spite your face. Why do you want to hold us all back by not like allowing everyone's contributions to rise up?
Yeah, yeah, there's more of a policing of the form of those contributions as opposed to recognizing any of the value of them.
Yeah, and like that applies like to what, regardless of the oppression. Like
Mhm.
if it's against women, why would you want to cut the potential of our species, cut the potential of what we can accomplish in half just to, I don't know, keep this other group of people under your thumb? Like
Right.
it's just never, I've never been able to wrap my head around that mindset. Like why is control more important to you than something that's going to make things better for everyone?
Yeah, that is, I think that insecurity is definitely seemingly at the heart of a lot of things. I mean, from the sort of dehumanization of the other that comes from outside of my immediate culture to toxic masculinity. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, these things like definitely are born out of a deep, deep insecurity, I think
Yeah.
oftentimes, and that's
Yeah, I
where
mean,
that
it all
desire to
comes back
control
to
comes from.
fear.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, again, tale as old as time.
Well, and that fear gets magnified when you have like atomization of people and atomization of priorities outside of the any kind of collective. And I think that's also an undercurrent of Guthrie's music and a lot of music of the time that is very focused on collective workers, their bargaining
Yeah.
power, their coalescence into unions and things like that.
Yeah, it's a shame. That's where I was trying to get a little while ago. It's a shame that we've lost that central message of
Mm,
it's not black versus white, Jewish versus Catholic, Catholic versus Protestant, whatever. It's poor versus rich. Like
yeah.
in this day and age, and like I think this kind of always holds true. Some dirt poor white guy from frickin' Neosho without a pot to piss in has more in common with some dirt poor black person in Gary, Indiana, or wherever than he has with a rich white person in this country. They have more shared experience than someone of their own race, but that person of their own race is telling them No, I hate those people over there. Like they're the ones that are different from you.
And not only like do they not have that shared experience with somebody that's like a billionaire, but even I mean, just you don't have that shared experience with somebody that knows that if they stopped working tomorrow, they would never have to worry about any of their bills. So, and
Yeah,
there's a lot of people in that class that I mean that just
or living close to the
that class
bone,
of
man. Like
comfort. Yeah, well, the more speaking, like, there's a lot of people in that class of comfort, and I think it's underestimated exactly, like, a little bit, like, yeah, it's we talk about the 1% a lot, but there's I mean, even in the 10%,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of people in that group that feel like they also have a lot in common with the billionaires, but those millionaires that have that cushion for they still have nothing in common really with like the Elon Musks and stuff. So there's even like nuance to the class divide where I feel like at each step of the ladder there's people looking up and seeing that next that class of
Yeah,
wealth above them and saying, "Nah, I'm like you. I just happen to be down here at the moment."
the temporarily embarrassed millionaire.
Yeah, yeah, very
But yeah,
much.
no, but there's been tons of studies that bear that out. We are horrible at estimating where we are relatively, and people, especially once you get up into just like the middle or slightly upper middle class,
Mhm.
wildly overestimate their selves relatively,
Right,
and
right.
wildly underestimate how big certain segments of the economy, the 1% or whatever, how the scale of some of those things. We're just not good at wrapping our head around those ideas.
Yeah, orders of magnitude in basically everything from people's understanding of physics, clearly by how they drive,
Yeah,
and you
wealth
just
or whatever.
and wealth. Yeah, like orders of magnitude are legitimately very tough
It
for
is.
people.
And I feel like there's some value in some of those videos where you just doing like a graphic representation, like the famously the guy that did I think it was Bezos' wealth when he was the wealthiest man in the world a couple 3 years ago, and represented it all with grains of rice, and like each
Yes.
grain of rice was worth like $10,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to visualize that when you're like, okay, this is what someone who's living at the poverty line, this is how much rice they have over the course of a year. And it's a couple, 3 grains of rice. And then you do move up, and it's pretty easy to see how quickly it jumps from one to one to one, you know.
Mhm.
But it makes sense. It's reasonable. Your brain can wrap your head around that difference. But then you get over here, and like even the rich people that you'd gotten to so far in the scale were still just pile of rice that you could put on a table. And then you got wheelbarrows over here where it's trucking
Right.
in like bags and bags of it's so nutty to kind of visualize that in any way.
And even with the visualization, like it feels it can feel still difficult to wrap your head around how that functionally impacts their perspective power. Like it's not like the difference between having $10 million that you can invest into various political causes in the country compared to $1 billion is
Oh yeah.
more than 100 times. Like
Yeah.
the actual impact is so much greater. The return on investment gets obscene at a certain amount of input.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, and back to Citizens United, man. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I told anybody that would listen at the time that this is going to be what kills our democracy right here. When money is speech, only rich people have a voice.
right. Yes. Yeah, I
It's
remember us
the
talking about that a lot actually.
inevitable fucking outcome of that. It's
Mhm.
I guess that's neither here nor there at this point.
No. I mean, God, it's still important actually to talk about,
It
which I
is.
think that'll be a topic coming up soon, or I don't know, depending on when this is once again when this is cut up and released, maybe that comes out before it. But tying some of those things that feel like they're from a bygone era that are actually extremely recent and highly potent and gave us the exact moment that we're
I
living
think
in.
that might kind of fit the zeitgeist of the show that we're going to be working with here tonight. So, yeah, let that be the opening salvo of that theme.
Yeah. Do we want to go ahead and listen
Um,
to your first song, or
yeah, I'm down whenever you're ready.
okay,
Like,
let's
what more can we say about Woody Guthrie? Like, if you're here listening to this, you probably have a pretty good idea, at least.
I would say that it's possible, but I uh, through the streaming community that I have from playing video games, I've got a pretty wide
Abroad,
range of
yeah, yeah. So,
people in other countries, people that just younger people that haven't heard it.
well, it's so for those that don't know, Woody was born in the 19 teens, I want to say, like 12, 13, something like that. So he was writing this about the events of the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression and the events that led us into World War II, and saw not just the rise in this fascist ideologies across the pond, but also right here in his own country, where prior to the war we filled up Madison Square Garden with
Hmm.
straight up flag waving. Like, you would have thought it was Berlin in the height of the war if you didn't know where this had taken place. So that's his motivation here. It wasn't something abstract. It was very real and dangerous and right there.
For so shamelessly, as we talk about some stuff, I have no problem fact checking myself in the moment.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Fact check the hell out of
you were absolutely correct. 19 teens, born 1912.
it. Booyah.
Just a little excerpt from Wikipedia. Guthrie wrote hundreds of country, folk, and children's songs, along with ballads and
Mhm.
improvised works. Dust Bowl Ballads, Guthrie's album of songs about the Dust Bowl period.
Dude, you'd recognize the album cover for that too. It's like
Yeah,
one of those iconic pictures that you'll recognize the second you see it.
and his guitar with the
This
uh
machine kills
this
fascists.
machine kills fascists, classically either written on it or put on a sticker on it. And Woody Guthrie also a proud anti-fascist and proud supporter of the Communist Party in America, actually,
Mm-hmm.
back in a time when it was exactly as offensive to people as it is today, but for different reasons.
Yeah, yeah. Although I will say that we had periods in our history where before, when it wasn't this boogeyman, like,
Hmm.
people could kind of rationally look at the objective pros and cons versus of a little bit more of a socialistic structure versus
Right.
just the laissez-faire capitalism, which prior to this point, like, or at this point, was responsible for wrecking our economy and just the most catastrophic scale to
Right.
date.
Yes.
So again, like, not abstract.
Yeah, not abstract, not subtle.
Yeah,
Generally
yeah,
not subtle. I mean, we'll reference things that even if you know your history really well, we'll absolutely reference directly events happening in his life that you might not be immediately privy to or not know the details of. And I would encourage anybody listening to Woody Guthrie to consider digging more into those topics as opposed to just
absolutely. Don't take
shrugging
our
that
word
off.
for it. Go learn for yourself.
Yes, 100%. So let's go ahead and let's listen to Inner City Blues by Marvin Gaye, which is one of your one of your suggestions.
Okay.
Um, and I will shamelessly say I'm picking this one partly because it was kind of like an honorable mention song. But why don't you go ahead and give us a little introduction, and then we'll listen to the song together.
Happily. Uh, I chose it honestly because I just needed a song from this album, and I thought about throwing just what's going on the title track.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it is in its own right. It's absolutely iconic, possibly even more so. But this album as a whole is just so incredible. Each song touches on different distinct aspects of the struggles at that time, and some of them are more as his experiences as a black person, and some of them are more just kind of the general economic things like the environmentalism. It's hard to pick just one, but Inner City Blues is just such a good song. It's such an absolute baller of a song, and man, I feel like it does. It's a great end cap to a masterpiece because it kind of encapsulates everything. And I'll quit gushing over it for a minute so we can play it. Yeah. So one of the things I love about this song is one of the things I love about the whole album. That
Hmm.
even though like it's so heavy and it deals with so many of these aspects that can just be so crushing. There's so much darkness and so much strife, but there's just a sense of optimism that permeates the whole album. Even though it's like we're dealing with the harsh realities of our time, there's still this sense of optimism. Like we're fighting through it. We're getting better. And the song ends on that optimistic note. It kind of has that little interlude and just that tiny little bit about who are they to judge us. But then musically, it really takes a nice little upward pep, and it kind of sends you out on this positive, hopeful vibe.
Yeah, yeah. I think also just there's a qualitative difference in the kind of artistry on display in this song compared to the Woody Guthrie stuff. Where listen,
Oh my gosh,
Woody Guthrie,
it's a tractor versus a Ferrari. Like,
yeah, like exactly, like with that, like Woody Guthrie, fantastic songwriter, wonderful, like could not say enough positive things, but
yeah,
is not like a master craftsman in this way. Where they're every like I was taken aback a little bit listening to the song, earlier today at just how fucking good the song is. And in that quality and just like how
this
good
song or
just this song, just, Inner City Blues
okay,
specifically,
yeah, 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 yeah.
how good this song is just
It's so
as
good.
a song without any critical analysis of the lyrics. It's fantastic, and in that
Yeah,
quality, he is able to do exactly what you're saying, like, but through having a song of this quality, he's able to emote in many different ways through the song and kind of take you in through like sort of the frustration, the sort of indignation, as well as just the
yeah,
like you said, the outro that yeah, there's so many more layers to it.
yeah. Like, and I feel like you can really spread the message. You can get this feeling across when the music is so incredibly good. It really kind of one sells the other a little bit, and like it's not going out on a limb at all. There are many people that consider this possibly the top album in pop music history, and I'm very much of that mind that it's in that top 2 to 3 record echelon. Like I can't not also consider like songs in the key of life or talking book either for that matter. by Stevie Wonder. Like, and also
Mhm.
amazing, but if not a little more subtle, protest music. Stevie was brilliant in that regard.
Yeah, I'd say, probably a bit more subtle, but I don't know. There's something about the way that Marvin Gaye just,
He was a phenomenal vocalist. Like his voice was just almost what everyone that wants to sing at any kind of falsetto register aspires
mhm,
to. But he also like he had incredible range, even though he spent a lot of time at the higher part of his register. He could sing
mhm.
low very, very well. And then just everything about it, it's top to bottom so well crafted.
There's something about the a lot of the simplicity also of, like, the cadence of the song, and, like, it really this was 1971. In a lot of ways, the way it's written, it feels a lot like a hip hop song. Like, the cadence of it,
Mhm.
very, very like, direct, and not mincing a whole lot of words. I mean, outside of, somebody like Aesop Rock or something like that, that's going to just throw you as many words as they possibly can at you. By and large,
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of hip hop music tends to be pretty
Less verbose.
direct,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to the point, but making a ton of points, and kind of hitting you with a barrage of those things. And that's sort of what Marvin seems to do in this song.
A little bit, although I'd say this song more it focuses on the monetary hardships
Mm,
of life, whereas other songs have different focus. Like
sure.
there's more focus towards the war or ecology, like all that. But this one tends, I think, to focus most directly on the economic aspects. But I wanted to bring something up that I kind of just it really struck me in a way that it hadn't before listening to it
Mm,
just now. But in the chorus, it says the make me want to holler the way they do my life.
yes.
And it's such a simple phrase, but the way they do my life, it really speaks to this like feeling of like not having any agency in the matter. Like, and I
Yeah.
can totally see how you could feel that way as a black person at this time in America's history, or at any time for that matter, in fucking modern times. But especially then, like, you're only 5 years removed from the civil rights movement being passed officially, but it's still like it's not like they were bending over backwards to comply with it.
Right, yeah, no, I mean, yes,
Uh,
the Civil Rights Act was not at all,
it wasn't the be all end all.
yeah,
It didn't
and
just cure racism. Yeah.
still obviously, there's a lot of work to be done in that space. But yeah, like, to the point of what you're saying, like, verse 2, inflation, no chance to increase finance. Bills pile up sky high. Send that boy off to die. There's a statement of like, these
That's
things are
kind of
happening to
universal too.
me. There's a statement of like these things are happening to me, but then there's a clear like focus on also taking the time to lay the blame the way they do my life. Like you said, like it's not just this shit happens in my life. No, these are conscious decisions by
Yes.
people that are being made that affect
There
my
are
life.
powers that are fucking me and my family, sending my boy off to war to die.
Right.
These are choices that someone up the food chain is making, and we're pawns in their game.
And yeah, we're pawns. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and they make the moves they want to make, and but this is the effect. Like it. So there was a point I actually wanted to bring up in the very start, and it's interesting. This is where there's once again kind of a sort of like bridge the divide, a sort of political divide, sort of message potentially deep in
Uh-huh.
here. Rockets, moonshots, spend it on the have-nots, right? A clear call
Yeah.
to action, right? Take this money we're spending on. I
Yeah,
would
we put
argue
a man
still
on the
very,
moon. Okay,
yeah,
great. Now can we fucking help some poor people?
yeah, exactly. Things that I think do have actual, like, they definitely do have value, but really, like, what
It's hard to see that value when you're starving.
exactly? And like, what's the fucking point of trying to earn that value now when we have this immediate suffering. But
Yeah,
then
the moon will still be there later, and I get that, but man, like that's one of those anti-intellectual ideas that has permeated our culture too, like Isaac Asimov has talked about.
mhm.
Like, yeah, this it's such a balancing act.
Well, and that actually again, the balancing act. Money, we make it before we see it, you take it, which I like sort of an indictment on taxation. And
Mhm,
but at the same
mhm.
time, in this message, he actually does make the full point, which is like, listen, I actually do have a problem with taxation of my income, not necessarily that it happens, but what it gets spent on. And
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
is definitely a concern that I have. We have, bloated military budgets and things like that, and also we
Yeah.
see, inefficiency in the way money is spent. Like, this is how, like, Doge gets to exist at all in the first place, really,
Yeah.
as a concept, is that there's a legitimate criticism to be made on how money gets spent,
Well, of
how our tax
course.
revenue gets spent.
Absolutely.
I feel like a lot of people stop caring about taxes being taken out of their paycheck when they see an actual material return on that taxation.
You'd think so, but like you can gather some money at the municipal level and like make some local improvement that people see, but then when people decide to be stingy and not get off their wallet, you can present them with that again. Like all we need is this eighth of a cent sales tax, and we can fix this intersection where 12 people have died this year because like it's stupid and people will vote it down. Like
There's at
it's
that municipal level, but there's also, I mean, arguably at a larger federal level, I mean, taxation is exactly how we would pay for, you know, healthcare
oh,
for
absolutely.
every
I'm not
American citizen. So
arguing against taxation in any way. I
sure.
just, if anything, fucking tax me more so people don't have to pay for fucking healthcare through this insane, convoluted, ass backwards, profit driven system that we have.
But to my point there, it's just like that is one thing that I feel like would be a direct material benefit, that suddenly you stop caring as much about the taxes because you see that that's money that comes out of your pocket, but that also materially improves your life and extends the amount of
Yeah,
time
yeah,
you
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
healthy with your family, with your neighbors, with your friends, with your church, or whatever the case may be. When you're talking about like this is a place where actually there is a potential for a
Yeah.
co-alignment of sort of a conservative value, or what's largely seen as a conservative value, of strength in your communities and your churches and your families, and
Yeah.
spending that sort of time and with those people. You get that time through, once again, co you know
Civic engagement on that local level, and like that's
right.
not something that just always necessarily happens organically. Cities
Mhm.
will do that consciously through like their whatever little local civic group that puts on the Fourth of July doodad out at the ballparks or this and that every year. The local
Right.
just little economic development club, whatever they want to call themselves.
Hmm. But yeah, man, there was a lot in this song that I really enjoyed. Again, it's kind of hard to get past just how good the song
Go listen to the
itself
whole
is.
album because it really is. It is. You could make a wonderful argument that it is the best album in modern pop music.
Yeah, I mean, what's going
It's
on?
definitely in that conversation at least.
What's going on? Pretty, I mean, obviously extremely well known, but I feel like there's a lot of songs in here that are not really familiar to me immediately, because this is not
Yeah,
like, I've
for sure.
listened to songs from this album, but I've not listened to the whole album. So I definitely need to listen to this whole thing because
I
it,
found this album very early on in my kind of like musical exploration once I got out of just this stuff that I'd been fed as a kid and started like finding the things that interested me. When I
mhm,
latched onto this immediately upon hearing it. and it from that point on was my I need to get in a good mood. It was my comfort, my blanket, security blanket, my comfort food, whatever, like of music. It kind of took on that for me.
And a very like as a whole album, very easily consumable in that it's 9 songs, clocking
It's yeah,
in at
it's
about
easy.
35 minutes.
Yeah, yep. You can just breeze through the whole album, and it takes you on such a wonderful, just thought provoking little ride. And it's just on the musical, the instrumental standpoint, it's so insanely well crafted. It's one of those albums where like I've heard all these songs hundreds of times, but like if I were to go put it on my big hi-fi in my living room and get my set of really good over-the-ear headphones and listen to it like that, there's so or listen to it with just any sort of really good in-ear headphones, like something where you can
Mhm.
really hear everything about the music. There's so much sonic layering to it and nuance to it. Like it's so well crafted and deeply crafted in that regard that it's just that's one of the things that makes it a masterpiece.
The title of the album is exactly what you're gonna feel, what you're gonna think after the first listen, where you listen to it and there's so much going on, you think, "What is going on? There's so much here,"
It's
and then you listen to
it's
it
kind of
again and
like an
again.
aloha means hello and goodbye too, because like it's depending on what he's saying. It's a happy thing. Hey, brother, what's going on? Or it's man, what is going on?
Right,
It
right.
means the same thing at the same time sometimes even, like
Right.
what's going on?
Yes. Yeah, like yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You could definitely merge both questions, both inflections into that question and ask them at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's brilliant through and through.
Really quick, I did want to hit also like so of all the things that get brought up. So we have a criticism of taxation, specifically how that money is spent,
Mhm,
uh,
mhm.
mentions of inflation and inability to pay bills. I can't imagine anybody that
Oh,
relates
so
to
much
that
of
at
this just
all.
rings true too, like, it's all feels pertinent.
Hang-ups, letdowns, bad breaks, setbacks. Natural fact is, oh honey, that I can't pay my taxes.
That line always kinda struck me as funny. It feels a little bit like first world, problems compared to the other shit going on, like, "Wait, you're making enough money that you owe money in taxes?" Or but yeah, like,
But
it's the man, like, taking his well-earned money.
yeah, okay,
I don't know,
I
it's
see exactly what you're saying. I see exactly what you're saying. I think there is another way. Once again, when we think about all these things being all these lyrics being subjective, to me, I can see exactly what you're saying, and I do think that's probably the perspective he's writing it from, just from this past tense, like the sort of like after the fact, rather, paying the
well,
taxes.
he did Marvin Gaye famously did have some, tax issues and shit, like,
Yeah,
so
this
I think that
it
might
is worth
be
noting. This is his 11th released studio album, so he'd been doing work for a minute.
yeah, 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 he wasn't living that struggle for a while at that point, but, like, he still fucking captures it, like
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
and I feel like that
But
mean that it kinda like, the what's going on again is
mhm.
it's, "Man, I'm staying here with my roots. I'm not getting away from you people. I'm staying with you, and yeah, I might be rich now, but I'm gonna sing your song. I'm gonna sing our song." Like, that communal aspect to it.
Right, yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly
The
the
way
communal aspect to it.
Sly and the Family Stones, music had that kind of communal feel to it.
Well, and I think just in the chorus, make me want to holler the way they do my life, like you said, like that. That at its own is also just like that does feel like a sort of a group building exercise in the chorus there, where once again it identifies. the people that are doing the damage in a way, as you know,
Yeah.
like there is
Yeah.
a group making these conscious decisions, and we're not fucking in it.
Yeah.
Um, but the hangups, letdowns, bad breaks, setback, like that. Also, I feel like the honey that I can't pay my taxes, like uh, I feel like that could also be taken as like, listen, the government takes this much out of my out of my paycheck. If I had that money in my pocket right now, I could maybe afford some of my bills. So I have to sort of choose, I have to make a choice on my withholding. Like
Yeah. Well,
whatever.
and there's
Yeah.
probably also a legitimate fact. He's probably getting hit by tax man harder than a white entertainer making the same amount of money, just due to the inherent biases in the system, especially in that time period when we still had rampant anti-communism paranoia, and we're
Mhm.
still messing around in those spaces. And so, like, there's a certain amount of justified paranoia, I guess, in there too. Man, there's also the whole aspect of the GIs that just got home, their fathers that got home from World War II, and on the promises of these GI bills, and like coming home and building houses and shit, which our fathers or grandfathers had that,
Mhm.
but theirs didn't. Those things were not equally applied. So from they kind of cut off at the knees historically, in that like they didn't have that capital back then to grow generational wealth. They weren't buying houses at the same rate that their comparable white service members were, because like one, they weren't being evenly given their GI bills, or they were being redlined out of being able to buy anywhere where they could actually get equity and build generational wealth that they could pass down to their children and grandchildren, which for most people is a home. That represents the biggest piece of generational wealth you can acquire.
Well, in talking specifically about also, these promises made to people returning from World War II, we've got 5 years after that, the Korean War,
Yeah.
and the effects of that still being felt certainly by 1971. I mean, Korean War
Uh huh.
ended 1953,
Uh huh.
so 18 years
And
later,
then
still
a hop,
feeling the
skip, and a
effects of
jump
it, but
into. Yeah.
we're already in, like, 2 years later, basically, the Vietnam War is starting to build up. I don't remember exactly the
Uh-huh.
dates for, the United States
It was
sending in
slow at the
troops.
loss.
I can look that up actually really quick. Let's see. Combat forces, let's see. We got deployment of advisors, it says, in the early
Yeah.
1950s, but specifically 1965 is where you have
Operation Silver
large,
Bayonet. Yeah.
yeah, large operations. So yeah, and then I believe it was 72 was when we had pretty much almost entirely pulled out, not completely, because the Vietnam War still, I think, lasted for another few years after that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as our, the United States involvement in it, yeah, by like 70, 72, 73, we're basically out of there. So 1971, I mean, there's been a lot of protesting against the Vietnam War. There's been a lot of
Yeah.
people, obviously families, have sending their sons off to fight in another,
Fucking quagmire for what? Like,
Mhm.
but okay. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I kind of want to segue to our modern time a little bit.
Sure.
Fucking, where are the Muhammad Ali's? Where are the Marvin Gayes? Like, why aren't we seeing those people that have that voice in today's society speaking up a lot more loudly? it's still something that just baffles me that we're not seeing more of this in real time.
I bring this theme up a lot, and I feel like a little bit of a broken record with it, but it seems like it comes up all the time. There's a lack of like meaningful solidarity amongst the various classes that we can draw. Um, uh, uh, you know, we can draw together based on like principles of equality, fairness, diversity, whatever the case may be. There's a lack of that due to the atomization of our people and our culture. I mean, there's so much. There really is. Uh, this has been critiqued for a long time, and from various directions that sometimes are disingenuous. But the this hyper focus on the individual, I feel like that does seem to permeate our culture, and one's individual appearance to the outside world and things like that. I really do think that it drives people apart, and I feel like these kinds of the kind of class solidarity that we see expressed in the songs that we've listened to so far, I feel like is directly oppositional to a lot of that. I mean,
Yeah. Well, it's
the idea of sacrificing yourself is is itself a recognition of the needs of the collective and your position to do
yeah,
something about
yeah.
it. But if sacrificing yourself is seen as giving up all your capital.
So like our sense of this American sense of rugged individualism has just run too far and permeated too deep that we can't look past our own noses to save ourselves as a group.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that individualization of it also makes people see the problems as bigger than something they can help with, because
Yeah,
we
I
take
get
all
that.
of the concern onto ourselves as opposed to us as a population of people that can lean on each other for support when trying to do meaningful things in opposition
Well,
to
how do you lean on your neighbor for support when your neighbor has a Trump flag, or if your neighbor's one of them scary ethnic people or something like
I would say
that? That's
I
that propaganda and that division that's been being sown for so many years and so many different causes is like that's where that's paying fruit.
right, yeah, that's the propaganda at work, and the response to it actually is to ask a different question, which is how do you build that solidarity if you don't know your neighbor's name? And that means that that itself should be a call to action. The thing that I can do to close the gaps is to just learn anything about the person next to
Yeah,
me, even if they
that's
are
a
like
community.
a crazy Trump supporter or whatever the case. Like, you don't listen. You don't have to go over there for fucking Sunday dinner, okay?
Yeah,
But when if good old Billy Bob next door's name, and you wave to each other at the mailbox every once in a while, and you exchange basic pleasantries of like, "Hey, I'm gonna mow your part of the side of the yard," or
yeah.
whatever. Like little small acts like that close the distance at all. Maybe you're around the one day when he's like, this fucking Elon Musk guy is an absolute piece of shit. I don't know
Absolutely.
why my boy Donnie trusts him, because that is an angle to a
Well,
more
let me
meaningful
tell you here,
conversation.
buddy. Let me tell you.
Yes,
I can really, really enlighten you on that. And yeah, like
but
that conversation you were describing, like you were basically just describing me. Like
mhm.
that I am that guy 100%. And like, yeah, I know the neighbors but I agree 100% that like there has to be that aspect of community to it, and that kind of fits
Mhm.
in with the other songs I've picked as well. There is a certain amount of communal aspect that I definitely wanted to bring up in this conversation. 'Cause I think that is our path forward out of whatever troubling times that we're in. It's not going to happen from the top down. It's going to happen from the bottom up.
Well, let's do this. You sent me some three more recommendations. I definitely, like I said, I chose this one, Inner City Blues, because it was one that I had also considered putting up there, even without having the same history that you have with the album. Just the song is just fantastic. And like I
Yeah.
said, when I was listening to it, it just struck me how good of a song it is outside of the critical assessment of the lyrics. But of the other songs that you sent, what would you like to listen to next? And we'll
Um.
sandwich yours into a
Okay.
couple of mine.